Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about digital transformation, focusing on how companies can optimize their digital transformation. To discuss that, I'm joined by a major industry expert. With me is Anil Cheriyan, CTO and Executive Vice President, Strategy and Technology at Cognizant. Anil, happy Friday to you, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, and happy to be here. It's a great
Great.
topic.
Yeah, indeed, it's a hot topic these days. And on that very note, I think it's interesting, that digital transformation has become almost a buzzword. Sometimes I think I'm not sure we really know what it means. I mean, I think of it as using technology to streamline workflow and improve productivity, but that's not necessarily a new idea. We've been doing that for a couple decades. So what is digital transformation in your view, and why is it so big these days?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it seems as though every time I hear it, people are using it in a different context, and it seems to be the catch-all for so much. But in my view, there's significant amount of change that's going on in the world at large in terms of our ability to interact with each other in a much more digital fashion. You take going to a bank, for example. It used to be that you had to go sit in the bank, you talk to a teller, you talk to a branch manager, et cetera, et cetera. Or if you went into a store to buy something, you physically drove in and so on. So the whole interaction model between us as consumers and businesses, or businesses with each other, digital transformation is, in my view, it's about really making that a seamless digital interaction so that you have less physical connectivity at that point, right? So that's so if you take about, so when did we have to do that really fast? Well, unfortunately, we had 2 years of COVID where we were forced to really drive up these digital interactions, and digital transformation became the thing, and everyone was, oh my God, we got to do this. We got to make this happen. We got to raise our, you could go to stores, you could go, order stuff online, pick up at the curbside. All of that was accelerated during COVID time. So people have got their hang of it and said, oh, digital transformation. Are you doing digital transformation? Now everybody and their uncle have now jumped onto the bandwagon, and so that's why you got this broader definition of it. So if you're moving to the cloud, I'm digitally transforming. If you're adding more AI, I'm digitally transforming. Well, yes, you are in a way, but you are doing aspects of what might be considered the broader digital transformation.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the pandemic accelerated the move towards digital transformation. It seems like it was growing, and then digital transformation, in particular the cloud, really was accelerated by the pandemic. And I think so. There's all these companies now that say, "Hey, we want to get on board with this. We want to invest in this more and more," but it's not as easy as it might seem. I'd love to get your sense of, as companies are moving in this direction, what's a big challenge that they encounter?
There's multiple challenges, and I can't boil it down to just one. But if you think about any large organization's got multiple products, multiple channels, multiple interaction models, and there are so many opportunities to drive transformation. So if you're a very complex organization, you've got to deal with that. And the question is, where do you start? Do you start with do you try and transform everything? Do you focus on one particular product? Do you focus on one particular channel? Do you focus on one consumer base? Where do you start becomes a big challenge. I think a lot of companies are struggling with that. The other piece is in terms of legacy systems. Legacy systems, unfortunately, have been built over time by definition, and they sit in their own silos. And they're not all that conducive to helping a company digitally transform. So having a strategy to deal with the legacy is a critical piece of it. Third piece is talent. Do you have the right talent? It's if you've been working with folks who are happy to keep the lights on, as it were, and keep it the way it is, and they're not willing to change or don't have the ability to make the change, having the right skills and having the right talent to make that happen. And then the last one I think is very critical is business ownership. When you talk about digital transformation, a CEO might say, well, let me talk to my IT guy and, hey, we got to do this digital transformation, and let him go. And if the IT person is not working with the business and really making this a jointly run and business owned transformation, lots of times it just fails. It just becomes an IT driven exercise, and that doesn't help anyone, right? So I think overcoming those 4 challenges in terms of where do you start, how do you deal with legacy, do you have the right skills, and then how do you make it a business-owned change? Those are, from our viewpoint, those are the big roadblocks, as it were.
Those are clearly, 4 thorny problems. The one that really sticks out to me is the idea of the legacy technology, and that I think one of the problems with that legacy technology is that it's often actually continues to work. It might be a little slower, maybe it needs some duct tape to keep it all running, but it's still running. But it's not, as you say, it's not conducive to the new world of digital transformation. I know a company's got to sit down and really make a decision about that. Is there any advice you'd give about legacy, handling legacy, and or some of the other problems you mentioned?
I think it's to take a multifaceted view when you're driving transformation. One, get started. Don't the worst thing one can do is do a 5-year digital roadmap analysis on what we need to be doing. Hey, the world will have changed.
Too much paperwork. Yeah,
you've just done a beautiful PowerPoint and nothing has happened. So
right.
I would just say, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Go for what is it that you're really trying to get done from a business perspective. Start small and then build towards an end game. But the key is to get started. But that's, in terms of getting it in motion, right business owners, right skills, right technology skills, right starting position, and get that moving. But then you're going to deal with, on a core basis, dealing with legacy. You've got to have a strategy for legacy. You've got to have a plan that says, and I've seen many companies fail to say, well, we're going to move everything to the cloud, and that's what's going to solve everything. Well, right. You can't move some things to the cloud because they're not ready for the cloud. You take a large old mainframe system that's 40 years old, it's not going to move to the cloud. Right. You're going to have to re-engineer it. You've got to go fix it. You've got to go figure out how to make that happen. So I think there's multiple layers or work streams to this overall digital transformation that you got to start going down the path. And legacy is a big nub, and dealing with legacy is something that at some point you have to face. It's not, as you say, sometimes legacy systems work so well. What is the real business value in and of itself to replace that, to make that a cloud-based system? That gets to be hard, right? You've got to really justify it in the context of the broader change that you're trying to make.
Well, let's drill down into Cognizant itself. I mean, what is the Cognizant Advantage when it comes to assisting with digital transformation? Why choose Cognizant?
Yeah, we're so a number of factors here. We are, when you look at our history, we've grown significantly across the enterprise. We're a $20 billion organization. We're, there's certain clients. I was actually in India visiting with our teams there, and one of our clients showed up, and we did the usual walk the client through the teams and so on. We were celebrating our 10-year anniversary of working with the client, and so just think about it. We have been with that client for 10 years. We know so much about the client. We talk about legacy. We know so much about their legacy platforms. We have such detailed, in-depth knowledge of what they're dealing with. That's one. The second piece is
sorry to interrupt on that, but that does make all the difference, because I think clients these days in particular, they want a partnership. They don't want to just buy something and walk away. They want a partnership with vendors. So I think that long-term relationship does make a big difference these days.
It's a huge benefit, because we're partnering with them, and we've been with them for 10 years. But the other piece of it is we're very deep in certain industries. We've been in the banking industry, and that's one of our biggest industry base. We've got a lot of healthcare, life sciences expertise, manufacturing, automotive. There's some industries that we are probably best in class in terms of our knowledge of that industry. And we know where, so when you think about what do we need to go get started on, we have a point of view. We have a point of view on the workflows that matter in those industries. So, and we'll be very open to say, hey, this particular industry, we may not have expertise on, but we can probably learn from the industries that we can bring you benchmarks and ideas from the industries that we're in. So we got industry depth. We're focused on building solutions with our partners on those industry workflows. And then lastly, in addition to having been with clients for a while, we've grown, our business in digital is something that we've made a concerted effort on to grow. It used to be 25% of our business. Now it's well over 50, growing at a pretty rapid pace. Mm-hmm. And how do we do that? It's really by organic growth, but we've also made 23 acquisitions over the last 2 years in focused areas on digital transformation. So we're building out, for example, a Microsoft business group through acquisitions. We're bringing in the right skills. We've built IoT practices through acquisitions, both organic and through acquisitions. Mm-hmm. So our capabilities have certainly grown in the industries that we're famous for, and in the workflows that we really know, and with the clients, frankly, that we have deep relationships with.
Definitely makes a difference. All right, so here's the big question. I think the several billion-dollar question is the future of digital transformation. Anil, if you look into your crystal ball, what do you see? Whether it's AI, machine learning, whatever it is, automation, AI apps, whatever you see. My question also is: it seems like the process never really ends. Like we're not gonna get to like 2026 and say, you know what, we're pretty well finished with digital transformation. There's not a chance that will be true. So it's essentially an indefinite process. What do you see for the future of digital transformation, like several years out?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So I've been in this industry, in this business for well over 35 plus years, and it's 20, 30 years ago, we would say things like, there's going to be no more, it's going to be a paperless society, and everything's going to
I remember the paperless stuff. It didn't
I still
quite turn
write
out.
stuff, but it didn't quite turn out. But it's, we talked about AI in the 1990s. And so, the good thing about, there's significant opportunity. I'd say 35% of our clients have really moved to the cloud. There's still a lot of movement to the cloud. That hasn't happened as yet for a significant number. AI, for clients have started using very basic, fundamental AI predictive modeling techniques. There's still a lot of opportunity out there. So the good thing about digital transformation is that we are, there's a significant amount of work that still remains to make sure that we move down that path. But the twister on all of that is technology is also changing in a very rapid form. Mm-hmm. Now, no conversation can go by without someone saying the big M word, Metaverse.
Yes, right. I'm glad we worked there. You get 5,000 bonus points, Anil, for using the word Metaverse. I would have been happy if we would have missed that.
We got to sneak that in somehow.
Definitely,
right?
Yes.
But in my mind, Metaverse isn't here. It's probably going to be here in 10 years. But there is this convergence of different technologies that are going to get us to the Metaverse, and it's all of the above, right? The web 3.0, the AI, the ability to do visual recognition, the ability to do unstructured data recognition, the whole gamification of things, the identity management and second ID and so on. All of those technology, IoT, all of those technologies are maturing. And we got to play in all of those technologies and use them as we transform. However, I see there's a convergence of these coming about, and technology vendors are now figuring out how best to play in that end space. And so, is it ever going to be over? No, I think we're going to continue to evolve, continue to change. And 10 years down the road, it might be a completely different world in terms of what we talk about when we talk about digital transformation. Where are we going next? And I think that's the beauty of being in the space of technology. It's always changing. It's always fun.
Definitely.
And there's never a shortage of opportunities. And that's what keeps us all alive and keeps us energized.
No doubt about it. And I think on the metaverse question, it's interesting because it seems like people are very discouraged about the metaverse now, like, oh, it's all out of hype, maybe it's not happening. But I know it's not happening quite right now, and probably not even tomorrow, so to speak. But when I look at some of my younger relatives, and they're obviously transfixed with video games, not only the younger kids, but I mean, basically an immersive video game environment is where they love to spend their time, which is really just a hop, skip, and a jump from the metaverse. So it's a metaverse. To me, the metaverse, as little interest as there is these days, somewhat there's the skepticism. It does feel inevitable at some level.
Yeah. I think when people talk about the metaverse, they talk about what I think was going to happen in 10 years. But there are several markers and proof points of getting there that we're all seeing right now. I mean, we're seeing examples. We talked to a client recently about, imagine you've got your Oculus on and you walk into a branch and you can look at a bank branch and you can look at a particular wall and you can click on that in your mind and then have data about it and all the stuff that it's all there. We're beginning to play around with it. The retail companies are beginning to play around with it in terms of fit and clothes and so on. I think there are lots of use cases that are not as sophisticated as the vision of a metaverse with all of those pieces. But I think if you don't start playing in them now and you don't start occupying that space, you're going to be left behind. And I think that's the only caution I tell our clients is, I know there's a lot of hype, but don't poo-poo it, because you're going to have to spend the time to get there, and it's inevitable. It's like the change is going to come. You all be 10 years from now, but between now and then, there's a lot of opportunity.
I think you said it. It's going to be a fascinating sector to watch. I totally appreciate you sharing your expertise today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Great. Happy Friday to you.
Thanks.